Hello, it's September 2023. There's always been earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, volcanoes erupting, floods, hailstorms, fires. All these things and more have always been happening. However, what are we seeing today? We're seeing a lot of these things happening all over the world simultaneously, and not only that, but very intense. Now, I'm not trying to fearmonger or try to sound like a doomsdayer, but people need to take note. While all this is going on, people are focusing on other things, from social justice nonsense to, as a descriptive, conspiracies. Now, I'm not saying that they may or may not be true. I'm not going down that path here. I'm going to be focusing on something else. But everyone's distracted. People wanting to stop, for example, as a descriptive, tyranny, focusing on that. And I've said there's no stopping what's going to happen. Why aren't people protesting and signing petitions and marching and everything else against all these natural disasters? Oh, because there's no point. But that kind of segues slightly into a subtopic where people are going to be screaming and yelling and begging for help from all sorts of governing bodies to do something to help them, because no one is being accountable for themselves. No one's preparing. Most people, I should say, are not preparing. They don't have the testicular fortitude to overcome, adapt, and survive. I've talked about this in my last video. They want someone else to be the hero, whether it be an individual or a group, for example, like a governing body. Things are happening. And most people, from what I observe, are just carrying on, either like nothing's happening or focusing on nonsense like sports and everything else because they need for things to remain as they have been, good or bad. That comfort zone. People do not want to be taken out of their comfort zone. I've talked about this in recent videos as well. People, rather than preparing, they're focusing on things, as an example, tyranny. There's a lot of things going around that's just as real. People need to prepare. Have a plan. If you have a family, you have to think about your family, especially if you have children, young children, or even babies. Things are picking up pace. And no matter what belief system or religion you belong to, they all talk about this particular time. I've highlighted the cycles of civilizations and the pattern within. But there's also cycles of nature, for example, of the world, and patterns within that. And what we're seeing are all these things now intersecting. We hear, for example, Ebola outbreaks, and I've talked about other outbreaks such as prions. We hear about all these real pathogens and bacteria and fungi just going crazy. But yet people are focusing on the narrative that has been going around, say, for the past several years. And I've talked about how things that are being imposed by tyranny need to be false because you cannot control the outcome if it was real. But there are real things happening in the world. Just pause and look around. And there's been a lot of people that I've just run into randomly, wherever I've been, over the past several years and even recently, who all say the same thing, that they feel something is coming. Now, most people don't, but there are some that have just talking to me as I'm sitting here, for example, in the parking lot, and saying, I feel I have to prepare. And my answer to them is, well, maybe you should listen to that internal voice. And I've even had people say, I don't even like outdoors or camping or any of that kind of survival stuff. And they have no skill sets, but they feel compelled to do something. And what they need to do, they're not exactly sure. Just tell them, listen to that inner voice. Some very basic things people need to prepare for. You need to have water. 3 days, water. 3 weeks, food. You need to have some sort of food or access to it, or be able to obtain it one way or another. You have to have warmth, shelter, and all these other things. But most importantly is water. And there's quite a few very good water filtration systems that you can even carry in your pocket, like a life straw, to slightly bigger units that can do liters at a time, to really big pieces of equipment that you would need, if, for example, a vehicle to carry it around in. But water. And then there's other things that actually have been vilified through so-called health experts. Salt. Stock up on salt, as well as sugar. Now, these things have been vilified, and they're coming out the past decade or two saying, they were wrong. But without salt, salt being the essence of life, if you drained all the salt out of your body, your heart will stop. Sugar allows the brain to function so you can think. Without that, if that's flushed out of your system, that's going to impair your cognitive abilities. And a lot of people have issues with critical thinking skills and not being able to separate their emotions and stuff. So take away the sugar from the body, and that makes things even worse. There's things going on in the world, and it's not going to go away. Unfortunately, it's not going to get any better. As I said, regardless of what belief system or religion that you adhere to, or even ancient writings, whatever, they all talk about this time. You have to prepare. You have to have the strength and the courage to endure and survive. Survival is not just, as I stated earlier, surviving tyranny. That's just a piece of a bigger puzzle going on. People are focusing on natural disasters, and there's one in particular that a lot of people have been talking about, calling it a land grab. A natural disaster or not, it's an opportunity that, yes, those, for example, who are very wealthy will capitalize on. And the whole idea of manipulating weather and everything else, I've talked to people and highlighted how that's in question. Very serious question. And, I'm just going to go on this little tangent just for a moment. Talking about clouds and making it rain and not rain and everything else. And all these secret government documents released and people having them on their computers and sharing them and saying, look, another distraction. But just think about clouds. We're told that water vapor from the surface of the world rises up. The only time we ever really see that is, for example, with fog. It only rises up so high. Water vapor rising 5, 10, 20, 30,000 feet. There's a thing called condensation. And we have air temperatures, and we also have the air density that differs as we go up, becomes less. There's something to think about before people start going off on this tangent of everything is human-made. No. The world is designed, created to do certain things and certain patterns and everything else. But there is something much, much bigger, way bigger than the human species at work here. Now, some of you are going, oh, what am I talking about, UFOs and everything else? Well, these things are part of it, but not how people think. And several years ago, I think about maybe 4 years ago now, I did a couple of videos talking about what this is really all about when they talk about UFOs and aliens and whatever. And you can call them aliens, demons, whatever. That's not the point. All these things are unfolding. And there's a bigger game that's being played. Just have to endure and survive. And when it's all over, as I've said in recent videos, whoever's left rebuilds. We hear about the zombie apocalypse, and I've showed in videos where multiple government agencies, governing bodies, militaries all around the world actually have documents talking about preparing for and dealing with a zombie apocalypse. But chances are it's not going to be like how movies have been describing them. What we do see is a pattern on how they all begin. I've highlighted that on another video platform. But really the message here is, for those in the know, for example, those people who feel compelled to prepare, the message is to prepare. But most will not, cannot make it through this time. But there's the inner strength for those who may be sitting on the fence. You just need that little nudge and say yes. And you don't have to spend a lot of money, maybe even no money, to prepare. As long as you have your basics covered, you'll be okay. But nothing's going to stop. Protest marches and everything else are not going to stop floods, hurricanes, fires, all this other stuff. Complaining, whining about these things is not going to change anything. It's not going to change anything with, for example, the descriptor I've used earlier, tyranny. Things are going to happen. Do not be afraid of the unknown. I just want to give you some things to think about. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people say, when is it going to get easier? When you die.